life is linked to being able to feed ourselves for the nourishment of our body, for the nourishment of our body, and for the nourishment of our body. This is some Zamzam water. Zamzam water is some blessed water that you find in Mecca. And we use Zamzam water to bless other bodies of water. So I will be pouring some of it to bless the jar. Water is a source of life. With water, we make sure that we purify ourselves. With water, we understand that life can't be sustained. As long as the water that we use is pure, then we also make sure that we are pouring pureness into spaces, into ourselves, and into the world we live. Our ancestors have crossed bodies of water without accepting it, but those bodies of water today separates us with the continent. But those bodies of water also are a channel today that we can take back to the continent. The bodies of water that we carry with us are the one where we carry in our wombs, are the one that we nurture our children that are going to be born and the unborn one. As long as we ensure that there is pure water, blessed water around us, then we can continue to pour life into our beings, and our beings. Starting from the very first ancestors, European people call it Lucy. She was found in the shores of Africa. We know that life has sustained in this earth. So I would like for you to call on your ancestors as we pour this blessed water into this jar and summon their presence here to continue with us as we embark in an uncertain journey. And we're going to continue to fight to stay in this uncertain journey, knowing that with the envelopment and the protection of our ancestors, there is no other way that we are not going to come out victorious in this uncertain journey. I'm going to start by calling my closest grandparents who died not long ago. Mama Salumbote, Sar Ashe. My father, Odulamen Sar Ashe. My uncle, Lamin Jaimburi Ashe. We are calling on ancestors that we know have shed blood in this land. So I need you to call on your ancestors. Ashe. 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 As she calls on George Floyd, I'm going to call on Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Muhammadu Sise, Amadou Diallo, Tamir Rice, Kendrick Johnson, Ahmaud Arbery, Lamin Sise. Who else was slain? Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Emmett Till, Nakia Prophet. Olutugin was slain.
Protect themselves or until Congress shall regulate the title. This was reparations. Our foreparents understood there is no freedom without reparations. This was law. People got land. Abraham Lincoln went to a theater, sat in a seat. John Wilkes Booth came and put a bullet in his head. The next president was Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson was the first president ever to be impeached. Andrew Johnson rescinded Special Order 15. And the land and the power that we were supposed to have coming out of slavery, we no longer got. Not only did those who got land, it was taken from them, and reparations was then given to the slaveholders for what they lost. We are still not free until we get reparations. So I want you to read this document. Our ancestors were smart. They understood. You can have a proclamation. You can have Juneteenth. But without reparations, we're still not free.
Thank you, Reverend Lynch. I'd like to bring up next Assistant City Manager Cheryl Long. And Cheryl, our city manager, assistant city manager makes so much happen here. So everybody welcome Cheryl Long.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, this is a beautiful morning. And as Councilmember Kearney said, I do believe that the sun is shining on us because this is something that is definitely needed and well deserved. Today we gather to commemorate an important day in our country's history, Juneteenth. But we are also here to mark and recognize a first for Cincinnati. Let's give a hand for that, a first for Cincinnati. Thank you. The relatively simple act of raising the flag above City Hall for the first time is such a major symbol for our city and our country. It's particularly fitting that it's occurring in the midst of current events taking place all around us. Historically, Juneteenth commemorates the monumental struggles of those enslaved and their descendants. But today, June 19, 2020, we stand here unified to celebrate African American history and culture, and hopefully a future and progress and growth for Cincinnati. The flying of the Juneteenth flag is a recognition of our history, the sometimes troubling history our country has endured. But it also serves as a sign of the progress we are making as a society. This flag is a reminder of what we have gone through, what we have to overcome, and where we can go if we do it together. Can we say this? Together. Together. I am not a big public speaker, you all, so forgive me. But as I think about it, I stand here not only as a city official, but I too am an African American mother, African American wife, and African American woman. I just want to say I am so proud to stand here today with all of you as we celebrate what should have never been taken away, the freedoms of African Americans. And I am thrilled to see the flag flying high above my place of work, City Hall.
Thank you, Cheryl. I also want to mention that Renee Mahaffey Harris, president of Center of the Closing the Health Gap, is here. And also, next to Mayor Cranley is Dina Cranley. Well, she was, okay, she had to go, but she was here. She doesn't like to be called First Lady, but she is our First Lady, so we're really proud that she's here. Proud of all the work she's doing with health care. So next, I would like to, Councilmember Greg Landsman, who made all this happen, is here. And so he's going to come and introduce Lydia Morgan and do the proclamation. Yay, Greg.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before I introduce Lydia, you've heard from speakers about what this moment means for the city, but also how far we still have to go. I want to echo some of that before I introduce Lydia, that the abolition of slavery did not abolish in many ways, slavery in the United States. And what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is a reminder that the iteration of slavery just evolved, right? It evolved after slavery, and it became segregation and Jim Crow, and today mass incarceration and the over-arresting of people, particularly people of color. And so the fight goes on, and I think it's important for us to know that this symbolizes many things. It symbolizes the moment of abolition, of the abolishment of slavery, but it also symbolizes the fact that we've never flown this flag before. Ever. And there's a reason for that. And we're flying it now because things are changing. But policy has to change with that flag going up. The second thing I want to say before I introduce Lydia is that there are a lot of people who helped put this together. There are city staff in our office, particularly Jenny Diaz, staff in Ms. Kearney's office, particularly Anthony Johnson, who you all, many of you got emails from. A lot of people have put a lot of work into this in terms of raising this flag, so please give them a round of applause. And then let me say the following about Lydia, which to me is at the heart of what we have to keep in mind and keep front and center in the, okay. Can y'all hear us? Oh, in the back, all right. Well, this is the part that I think matters most. Lydia and her husband and others started Juneteenth here in the city of Cincinnati in 1988, more than 30 years ago. Yeah, that's a round of applause. She had no money. There was no money for marketing. There was no money for outreach. And on the first year, 2,000 people showed up. 2,000 people showed up. Now, 30 years later, she's here raising this flag. Okay, 30 years later. What I love most about people beyond compassion and integrity and hard work is perseverance. The stick-to-itness, King said. The people who just don't give up. Lydia Morgan is somebody who just doesn't give up. That's why we're here today, is because she doesn't give up. So, in honor of her, the work that's been done leading up to this moment, and hopefully, the big sea change that we're witnessing, and the big policy change that will follow, let it be proclaimed. Whereas the American enslavement of Africans subjected millions to the force of slavery for more than 400 years, I would add, and continues to this day. Whereas in efforts to create a more perfect union, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation January 1, 1863, providing that all persons held as slaves within the state or designated part of the state shall be henceforward and free forever. Let me just pause for a minute. There is another part of that amendment, isn't there? There's a loophole in that amendment. It only applies to those who haven't been arrested or criminalized. So the fight to make the 13th Amendment real for every single person is a fight that continues today. Whereas the Emancipation Proclamation made the permanent abolition of slavery a Union war objective and provided the legal framework for the liberation of nearly 4 million enslaved persons as Union armies advanced further south. Again, I would remind you that there was a loophole that we have not yet closed. Whereas, while the Emancipation Proclamation declared freedom for enslaved enforcement of the order dependent on Union Army presence and control, which many slaveholders evaded by fleeing to Texas. And whereas consequentially, an estimated 250,000 enslaved people were living in Texas on June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston to officially proclaim by the end of both the Civil War and slavery, more than 2 years after the initial Emancipation Proclamation. And here we are, decades, a century and a half later, and we still have so much work to do. Whereas now known as Juneteenth, June 19th, is annually recognized to commemorate freedom and represents the continuing fight for equality and equity for Black Americans. And whereas citizens of this city have gathered today to celebrate Juneteenth since 1988, in large part because of Lydia Morgan and her husband and so many others. So now it be proclaimed on behalf of the Mayor John Cranley and those of us on council and this city administration that this is Juneteenth Day in the city of Cincinnati. We're going to raise that flag, and it's because, in part, Lydia Morgan.
I have been given permission to make remarks, but I'm only going to make a few because I have hit that 70 mark, and I know all of us don't want to be standing here in this heat much longer. Anyway, this has been something near and dear to my heart. Of course, I didn't grow up celebrating Juneteenth. I didn't know anything about Juneteenth. I wondered why we celebrated our freedom from Great Britain, but we didn't celebrate our freedom from the United States. And my mother, when I would ask her that, she would just look at me and shake her head like, you know, it is what it is. But at any rate, back in 1986, I was lucky enough to go with my husband on a trip to Phoenix, Arizona, and I found out people were celebrating our freedom. And I went to my first Juneteenth there, and it was marvelous. It was tiny. There were probably about as many people as there are here at that Juneteenth festival. But it was like a family reunion. It was like everybody was loving on everybody, just like we're doing right now. And when I came back and talked to my friends, we decided it was something that we had to have here in Cincinnati. And I'll tell you, my husband and I have been working on this festival for 33 years, and many of the first people who worked on that first committee are very much still involved with working on Juneteenth. We've got new people, but Juneteenth was very, very important. And the other thing I'd like to say, we have a group of friends of Juneteenth, and those are people who want to see Juneteenth happen bad enough that they donate money every year. And that really means a lot to myself and to my husband with the kind of work that he does, because I just say, would you get this done? Could you get this for me? Would you type this up? Could you send this off? And he's there to get it done. But we just so appreciate so much all of the help that we've had over the years. Connie Harris over there, she's looking like, why is she calling my name? But Connie was my connection with the library, and she would always, who should I call to get this done? Connie had the answer, so I've always been very appreciative of her. And I cannot not mention Karamia, because though we all talked about it in our meetings about getting Juneteenth done, Karamia kick-started us and got us moving on this path to get this flag raising done. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing that we have a country being run by a person who has no idea anything about our government or anything about our people. But he stumbled into something, and it became something very good for Juneteenth. He stumbled into planning, his people stumbled into planning to have a rally for him on the 19th. And then it was blown and blown and blown. And I can say, though I won't say his name, don't say his name, but at any rate, I will say He has done a lot with his own lack of common sense to make Juneteenth what it is right now today, and to have this flag flying, and to have people calling saying, what can we do to help? What can we do to help businesses, whatever. And we have never, ever had that kind of response, and I hope it is not short-lived. I hope that it continues year after year, because the one thing I truly, truly believe, Juneteenth is not a black holiday. It is an American holiday. And all Americans need to celebrate our history. It is our history. We all need to celebrate it. And you parents and past teachers and all of you who have parented, we need to get behind our schools, because they're not teaching our children this history. And they need to know this history. All of them need to know this history. I'm thankful to Greg, wherever he is, and Michelle, right here, and my husband and my family and all my friends who just make Juneteenth happen every year. They're there, they're putting up booths, they're handing out papers, they're doing whatever I need them to do, and I really, really appreciate that. And I do appreciate the fact that all of you are here this morning, because this is a very important event for Cincinnati. This will be the first time that this flag has flown, and I have to say I'm just as much at fault as anybody else is, because I didn't even know you could do that. You know, I didn't even know you could come down here and say, I want you to fly my flag. So at any rate, it's done, and hopefully we'll be able to do it a long time, forever, forever, forever. So thank you. Oh, and one other thing, some of you have gotten some flyers, and the flyers talk about the Juneteenth videos that will be shown starting tonight on access channels, and the channels are on the back of the paper. But also, there was really another coup that we have. Channel 19 has agreed to play both films on Sunday, one at 11 o'clock and the other one at 1 o'clock. So be sure and watch, and make your Juneteenth celebration meals. If you don't know what should go in them, go to the website, go to the Juneteenth website, and we've got a list of foods that you can include in your Juneteenth celebration meal. Thank you. Excuse me, and the other thing I need to tell you is when this is over, Asia, where is she? Asia Harris will be, that's your cousin, Asia Harris will be leading us over to, not walking, in cars, leading us over to Marion Way, over that way, to lay out flowers in honor of all of our ancestors who died trying to get to freedom. Since the Ohio River does represent a big piece of that flight to freedom. So thank you, Asia, and we will see you over there. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lydia. Asia, raise your hand so people can see where you are. There she is. She's a powerhouse. Okay, I was remiss, I didn't mention the president of the National Action Network Cincinnati chapter, Bishop Bobby Hilton, who also is chief of staff for Hamilton County Commissioner Stephanie Dumas. And also Eddie Cohen, who's president of the Urban League and really responsible for this Black Lives Matter mural, which will be unveiled at 2 o'clock today. So we hope after you go and lay the flowers by the river, get something cold to drink, get some lunch, come on back and be here at 2 o'clock. Eddie, thank you for doing that. Okay, so right before we raise the flag, we have to bring our last speaker, and he's so dynamic. I told him he's got to speak last, and he is the first vice president of the Cincinnati NAACP, Joe Mallory.
It's hot out here. I'm gonna try to keep it brief. Okay. So I want to thank Councilmember Jan Michelle Kearney and Councilmember Greg Landsman for making this a possibility, a reality. And I want to thank Ms. Lydia Morgan for carrying this torch all these years, keeping the memories alive and the celebration of Juneteenth. I talked to her the other day and she told me that she wanted to pass the baton to some young folks. So get around Miss Lydia Morgan, let her teach you what you need to do so you can be part of this celebration, which we consider the Black Independence Day. Because we know the speech that Frederick Douglass gave, right? What to the slave is the 4th of July. And Juneteenth is our Independence Day. So, I just want to say a couple words. And because it's Juneteenth, this isn't Black history, this is American history. Because America's original sin of slavery is woven into the fabric of this country and is buried in its soil. And even after the Emancipation and Proclamation, it took 2.5 years, 2.5 years for the enslaved in Galveston, Texas to be liberated. I believe it should be a national holiday. Maybe we can start with the city of Cincinnati, get the state, and then make it a federal holiday. So I believe it should be a national holiday. And by doing that, we'll be all acknowledging the history and taking a step towards reconciliation. Because after 400 years of oppression and depression, we stand in the shadow of and on the shoulders of our ancestors. And we are continuing to fight for justice, equality, and accountability even now. As we passionately articulate things like health disparities and underlying conditions. The underlying condition that we face as African Americans is being Black in America. That's an underlying condition that we have no control of. But that's being Black in America. Juneteenth, as our National Independence Day, should never be forgotten because it's a painful reminder of just how much further we have to go. And if you look at Bethel, Ohio, that just recently happened, somebody may not know about it, but in Bethel, Ohio, there was a peaceful protest for justice, accountability, and for Black Lives Matter. The people in Bethel took offense to people gathering peacefully, trying to protest, to raise awareness of injustices that are taking place in this country over and over and over again. And we had police who were present that observed some of the assaults that took place and did nothing. They did nothing. But thank goodness for the video camera, because many of those perpetrators have been identified, and hopefully they'll be prosecuted. So I say, with the events in this country, that we all must reflect and take inventory of our conscience and realize that America has exceeded its tipping point. And we're at a boiling point for change. So may we all truly work together to take meaningful actions that result in authentic, transformative change. No more window dressing rhetoric. We need results. Because words without deeds is like watering without seeds. The current structures that perpetuate the status quo just isn't good enough anymore. So we need to stay at the table and insist and demand on change and get to work. Our ancestors fought to try to stay alive, to pass this torch to us. All the sacrifices they made, let's not throw those sacrifices away and stand on their sacrifices and all their hard work. They understood how important it was to have their voices heard and to be involved in a process that didn't respect them, but they still fought. Right now in America, we have a right to vote. And I want to encourage everybody, if you don't know if you're registered, you don't know what your status is, check it today. Check it today. Because democracy is not a spectator sport. Voting is a verb. It takes action. Tell your friends and neighbors how important it is. If you want change, we have to insist on change and make change. Once we elect these elected officials, that's not the end of the process. That's only one tool in the toolbox. We have to hold them accountable. They are there as our voice. We elected them. We are all tax-paying citizens. We must demand accountability. We must change policy. We must create policy. And sometimes we must change policymakers. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Joe Mallory. Also, I want to mention that the division head for the Office of Human Relations, Paul Booth, is here. Paul, wave. Okay, so now it is time for the flag raising, and I think Greg Landsman and Lydia Morgan are going to, are you going to go? Okay, so as the flag goes up, I want us to just remember our ancestors. Let's think about freedom and how we can move toward freedom, all the things that are going on in the world today, all the change we've got to make, and we've got to make it together. And I would like to bring Lisa Craig up to sing as we watch the flag. So everybody turn toward the flag. Lisa, come on up. Lisa is going to sing as we watch the flag raise.
I think as we go to raise the flag, do the cameras, you all need to move? Do you all want to move? I've been told that folks want to move. So we'll give you a second to move over. And if you want to reposition yourself, this is actually a good position for you. But if you want to move, we just wanted to give people an opportunity to move. Thank you. Hey, thank you all for being here too, by the way. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, in just a minute, hi. In just a minute, we're going to hear Lisa Craig. We'll let everybody kind of settle in. Lisa Craig, you said Lisa Craig. Okay. I thought you were about to And I should mention that Lisa is the executive.
Freedom over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. To my Lord and be free. Freedom, oh freedom, oh freedom. No more weeping over me, and before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. they'll be singing over me. I'll be buried in fire. Go home to my Lord. Turn me around, ain't gonna let no. On talking, marching on the I'm gonna keep on marching on the street. From prisons.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I didn't even have to say anything. He center, baby, always.
Well, also you got to do nothing but virtual. Aren't you doing a bunch of virtual tours now? Oh, you can?
But I'm thinking since the right coming months, everybody's now like going out and checking out
And when everyone comes out, we have to ask everyone to social distance and move back as close to the rate break as possible.
When we finish moving in and settling in, we'll get that tomorrow.
Yeah. Seagull stay. It might fall over, but who cares? Give it a shot. Just wedge it in there.
You knock both bars down, bro.
You can do it, Jenga. Reverse Jenga. Ah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. And you shielded the logo. Perfect. It's WA.
Hey, when was the last time you guys redesigned those logos?
like a year ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every couple of years.
When was the last time we did ours?
We changed our font like
Oh, really?
5 years ago.
Logo used to be like WSA, and then it was like a 9 at the end.
Right.
Bob.
Yeah, they used to have the I in front of the 9, and now it's like behind it.
You need to shout like news for the hard hitter.
Okay, no. Easy,
Guys, we're going to do our best here. We know it's not ideal situation. We appreciate everybody following the safety protocols. So if you please just ask questions in an orderly fashion. They're going to speak up as much as they can, so bear with us as we try to get through here. Okay, thanks a lot.
I guess first I want to welcome everyone on behalf of Monumental. And I can't stress enough that the events of today were organized by these men and women. The organization Monumental, understanding our core values, understanding what we represent, support them, but it's all about them and what they wanted to do, and understanding that they have a responsibility. You know, that they understand that it's not just about a statement or a march, but it's a follow-up. As we go after that, they understand that they are more than just basketball players. So with that, I'll turn it over to them. Questions?
Yeah, you guys still have questions?
How did this march start?
How did this idea germinate? How did take us through how the ball got rolling?
Honestly, it was Natasha's idea. She actually hit me up a couple weeks ago wanting to do a march, and I was all in. And I think we kind of pitched it to the rest of our team, and we all agreed that it was something that was going to be powerful and meaningful to us. No disrespect to Monumental, but we wanted to do it as a team. We wanted to do it as so many players, and we're happy that they supported us and our organization supports us and both teams support us. But this was definitely all Natasha's idea, man, and we just kind of put it together, and we figured we're in the most powerful city in the world. You know, we're influential athletes, whether we like it or not. We have a voice, we have a platform, and this is just one of the ways we're going to utilize it, you know, with this march. But as Coach Thompson said, man, this isn't going to be the last of our work. We have more work to follow up after this too, so that's the whole thing.
Natasha, you marched in Philadelphia, your hometown. California is beautiful. People think it's something similar here, and your second home in DC.
Oh, it's absolutely important. I've been in DC now for 6 years. DC has been a second home to me for years now, and so it's really important for me to not only give back to where I'm from, but to give back to this community that means so much to us too. And reaching out to Brad and the Wizards, we all feel the same. You know, yeah, we put on a jersey every single night and we rep the district, but we care about this community and we're a part of this community. So, like he said, in any facet that we can use our platform and our resources, that's what we want to do.
What's been your reaction to what's happening around the country and around the world supporting this movement at this time?
Oh, that's a really hard question. I think we've gone through all emotions across the spectrum. It's been really heavy these last 2 weeks. It's been really draining in the sense these last 2 weeks of making sure that we're using our platforms, making sure we're using our voices for the voiceless. It's been a mixed emotions. You go through everything of sadness to that daily fear that we face with being black in America, to that anger of this is not the first. George Floyd was not the first, and he wasn't the last. I think as of like 2 days ago, there was 120 deaths after George Floyd, and that's the reality that we live in. So this is where we stand together, united in solidarity, and we say we're not going to be silent anymore.
Brad, can we ask the same thing? What's been your reaction seeing the movement that still thrives today?
Let's just say that it's been difficult in a lot of ways because even as an athlete, you know, I still face some of the same harsh realities that my fellow members in the black community face. I've been pulled over multiple times. I've been racially profiled walking down the street before. So all of these things have happened to me, and it's definitely, it's kind of shocking that we haven't grown. You know, we think we've really gotten far, and it's just sad to see that we have technology now that's just putting everything out on display. So I think it's just really just opening the wounds even more, you know, more so than anything. And it's really a numbing feeling because now I have 2 young black boys I have to raise. And the most difficult thing for me is just trying to channel how much different their lives are going to be from how I came up. But at the same time, it won't be too different. They're still going to face those same challenges eventually down the line. And it's just a matter of not preparing for that situation. So it's been difficult to grasp, you know, but at the same time, you can't be silent about it. You can't sit on your hands. When you have a platform, you have an opportunity, you got to take advantage of it, man, and swing that bat no matter what happens, no matter what people's opinions are. You know, you got to stand for what's right.
I just wonder over the last 5 or 6 years, how your own personal journey has evolved with regard to these issues. You're being willing to not just speak out, but lead on this.
Always I've been blessed with a bigger talent than basketball. I feel like I'm a humble human being, I'm a people person. I love everybody. And it really hurt me to know that when Mike Brown passed in my hometown, I didn't really do anything about it. I was kind of a guy who kind of swept it under the rug. At that time, whoa, let's try to figure it out. But I didn't do anything about it. That's 5 years ago. And we haven't changed. The same things are happening. And they're on display more and more and more. And it's more frustrating. But as I've matured more, as I got older, I have an opportunity. If I fail, I fail. But I can't sit here and say I didn't try. I can't sit here and say I didn't put up an effort. Because I've been blessed with this platform, this opportunity to do so. So I'm gonna ride this train till the wheels fall off, man. We have a bunch of people who support us. We all support the same idea, the same rights, the same standard. And that's what we followed up on. That's what we're ready to stand.
You guys said that the march today is just one step. What is that next step? What is the march leading towards for both of you guys?
Eventually action, you know, and we've been coming up with what are some of the social issues in which we face in everyday life. You know, police brutality, racism, the education system, prison reform. There's a vast spectrum of problems in the U.S. that we all can agree on. But the most difficult thing is solving one. There's going to be another. So it's going to be a game of patience, and that's what we understand. And that's what we hope everybody understands, is that it's going to take everybody to collectively come together to fully understand what we need. And at the same time, we also have to fully be committed to change. We have to be fully committed to these different vast problems that we have and be open to solve them. Because we can't be naive to that they don't exist, because they do.
Brad gave you credit for coming up with this. How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, I mean, Brad gave me credit, and it was more so credit of bringing it to his attention, but Maisha had actually wrote me the idea. She texted me and said, hey Tosh, what do you think about us doing a march? And I was like, I would love to bring in Brad and the Wizards. We had been meeting every week already at that point on Zoom calls. Me and a few of my teammates, him and a few of his teammates, as well as Coach, and some other people as well at Monumental. So it just made sense, and we understand the power that we have with not only our platforms as statistics, but like Brad just said, collectively is where we're going to get action done, and we're going to get more done. So bringing each other in, you know, this is a family. Our two teams, yeah, we're separated, we're men and we're women, we play at different points at different times, but we're all fighting the same fights. We all care about the same things, and we find commonality in respecting each other. And, I don't know how many cities have this type of relationships between their two teams. So it's a really special bond between our teams, so it only makes it right that we do it together.
Coach, can you share the John D. Carter
I think Bradley worded it best in that not much has changed. And I think if anything has changed, you see the actions of young people, you see the actions across races, sexes, ethnicities, ready to stand up now, as opposed to just one particular segment of society. But not much has changed, and that's a problem. And that's where these young men and women, and as well as our organization, are trying to see if we can move the needle a little bit. As Brad said, when we attack one issue, but but relative to, you know, when Pops walked up, Pops was in 42, not much has changed.
Question for Natasha and Bradley. You guys were at Black Lives Matter Plaza just before here. When you look out and you see that on the streets here in DC, what's that mean to you?
It's powerful. When you're talking about something being so bright, so visible for everyone to see, you can't ignore this anymore. And I think that's been our message too, to everyone in America, is that you can't ignore this anymore. Your silence is a knee on our neck. Your neutrality is taking the side of the oppressor. So with Black Lives Matter, I mean, you have to see it. You have to wake up to it every single day. You have to go past it every single day. It's a subtle reminder that we're here, we still matter, our lives have always mattered, and until Black lives matter, not all lives matter.
I think it's beautiful because it really portrays the togetherness in which we've grown a little bit. Because not only is Atlanta affected, South Carolina, Louisville, where these events happen, Minnesota, where these events took place, but it's the entire world. It's people in Australia, Europe, who are marching, protesting, doing the exact same things we're doing, and it didn't happen to them. So to see that on the global scale, to see that this is our nation's capital, and to see that right behind the White House, I mean, you can't ignore it, as Natasha said, you can't ignore it. And I think that's where the beauty of it comes in with this generation, is that there is no more ignoring the ignorant. There's no more being ignorant to what's going on. Like, we can't condone that, we can't accept it, and you know, we have to pay attention to what's going on, the harsh realities that we live in, and face them front on. And as Natasha said, Black Lives Matter, and you know, all lives can until they do.
Hey, Brad, you said you're going to profile. Is there a funny incident that you share that helped the law enforcement someone talking about?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to be like an asshole, but I mean, pick a situation. Like, I've been pulled over with four hoopers in the car before, and we've all been taken out search because we were black. Right in a white neighborhood. I went to an all-white school in high school. Okay, it happened here 2 years ago. I got pulled over on 495. The officer asked me to step out of the vehicle. I'm literally on the side of the highway. My wife, me, and one of my friends sitting the median, I don't know what it is, the median of the highway on the side, and he comes up to me and says, what if I fuck up your Monday and put you on a headline and arrest you right now? Didn't do anything. But because I was an athlete, a black athlete driving a nice vehicle, that's what he came over. And how am I supposed to respond to that? I'll just be waking up on Monday morning with the ESPN headline, Bradley Field arrested because interaction with the police. But it's not, I mean, it happens. It doesn't happen to me, it doesn't just happen to our, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And we just have to stop being ignorant to the fact that it exists.
One more question, please.
Josh, with what Maya did a few years ago when they decided yesterday, do you think about that even kind of theoretically as a possibility, or do you say, I can do more work from inside and still pass that black?
No, I think that, I mean, what Maya did at the time that she did it, she should be in the conversation of Colin Kaepernick and of all the other greats that have stepped away from the game for a greater calling. You know, Cap was kind of forced out, so he didn't really have a choice. But, you know, when you're in this time in the last 2 weeks, I haven't thought about basketball one time. I have to because I'm a player rep and I have to be on union calls for the WNBA. But that's the last, this is bigger than basketball. We're not only athletes. When we take that uniform off, we are black men and women. We don't get to take our skin color off and walk around the streets and have that privilege. We don't have a choice. So when we're talking about the game of basketball, today, right now, I could care less. Our calling right now is to use our God-given platforms, to use our voices, and to collectively come together for something greater than all of ourselves combined.
Natasha, one quick question for CNN. Can you just tell me what you think people should think and feel when they see that more athletes are joining this call for real substantive change?
What they should think and feel?
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a Players Tribune as a call to athletes, but it was a call to everyone. But especially our athletes and our celebrities and politicians. We have a voice that can be used for the voiceless. We have this platform to sit in front of all these cameras and this media and be a voice and to use our voices in the right and correct way. So I challenge all of us, if you're still staying silent, you're part of the problem. If you're choosing to be neutral, you're choosing the side of the oppressor. Because for our leagues, especially the NBA and the WNBA, I know for us, 80% of our league is black. So at what point for our white counterparts, you know, and our white teammates, do you step up to the plate for us? You can go to war for us on the field or on the basketball court, but what are you doing behind the scenes when we go home and we're getting pulled over on our way home? But it's a call to every athlete too. If you're a black athlete, if you're silent, you're just the biggest part of the problem to me.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
The players will be on 6th Street. They will bring remarks over there too if you want to go grab them. 6th and G, that's where everything will start. Thank you.
Players on 6th Street. So 6th Street's down there. I'm going to put that back in the car and meet from 6th Street. Sorry to make you go for it.
I love that wheel sound when the cop just blinked out.
Yep.
That's, I think, to maybe.
That's a great point.
Yeah, right. You know, it's just.
How do I get on? I mean, I get a runtime for this. How am I going to film this? Like, it's like everything's I got to sound like that to sound bad. I'm like,
I know.
This is good stuff.
I was taking notes and like every single thing you're saying is so like.
Okay, it's this one right here. Yeah, it's like it's like a motorcade protest. So I'm guessing that's what. All right. Yeah, I think it's supposed to start at noon. They just want to check it out first. Shop for desk. Yeah, so I mean, this is the parking lot here. I don't see anything too unusual at the moment. One more time, sorry. Let me check. So how's the fuel, Rob?
24/7. Killed in a police van after arrested. 6 officers got charged. This is ridiculous. 2 years, 4 trials, no convictions. George Floyd. 3 officers nailed on him. He told him he couldn't breathe. They didn't care for him. The country rioting everywhere for him. Fuck those cops. I have no fear for him. Hector Moran, he was unarmed. The cop shot him dead. He cried for his mom. India Kaga, Navy vet. The passenger in a vehicle was a suspect. Her baby in the back seat. The cops started shooting. The officers were cleared of criminal wrongdoing. Jamal
It's a never forget moment for everybody, whether you're white or black, and what has to be done and what wood still has to be chopped in this country around education, which is the root of misguided values. And it allows America to turn a blind eye to what happened in this country. The whole forget about it, but we never can forget 9/11. Like, you know, there were some other things that happened that were catastrophic in this world, like the Jewish Holocaust, the African slave trade, and other major events, and we will never forget. I will say this. Dad always, when we were kids, we would talk about votes, elections, every election, no matter what election it was. I remember I told Miss Lee, Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee, when I was in St. James, I remember her talking to Dad about trying to win her first election. Votes matter. Sheila and Congressman Lee and Congressman Green are treasures to our community. And Dad would always say in his elections, in those later years, Jason, in my district, there are 150,000 eligible voters. About 50,000 are registered to vote, and about 10,000 voted. These are statistics that we heard over. So we can protest in the streets, but we got to protest in the polls. It's too early. No. I whispered to my sister and said, hey, are you getting up to speak? She said, no. And when I spoke to Doug, he said, are you going to speak? I said, I don't know. And my brother was not sure also, because it's only been... But we're extremely proud, and we thank all of you. We're here to say, through numerous phone calls and conversations, that Juneteenth USA, which Dad founded in 1985, now has a new board of directors, my brother, my sister, and I, and we'll be expanding that to carry on Dad's legacy of advocacy around education reform and education about Juneteenth and other Black history in this country and around the country. So they've put me as president in this first transition, and we're going to rotate. So we look forward to engaging with the community, carrying forward the legacy, and never forgetting. Thank you. We'll bring in my brother Al Edwards a second for brief comment.
Good morning and happy Juneteenth. I tell you, it's this is a different Juneteenth than the previous 41 for me. The first one, I was 7 years old. My first one as a legal state holiday. A few things I want to say. As Al Edwards II, I think my dad has always sort of pushed me out to learn to speak for him, speak for my younger sister, my sister and brother, because I was the oldest. Wasn't always a role I embraced, but on today especially, this first Juneteenth, since my father has completed his work, I want to say what I think he would probably say, which is, thank you. Today, 46 states in this country recognize Juneteenth. And here in Texas, one of the reddest of red states, with a governor by the name of Bill Clements in 1979, on the last day of the regular session, Al Edwards, a freshman legislator, did some horse trading and got the first state-recognized African-American holiday on the books in the United States. And that is a thing worth celebrating. I want to say a couple of things, but the first thing I want to do is say he began pulling that sled when no one knew it was a sled. But to get it to be recognized with the momentum that it has now took all of you and all of us and some teammates that ran part of the way and took their rest over the course of those 41 years. It was not his work alone. It was not just my mom and dad at the dinner table or us painting signs and making t-shirts and spreading that word, but it was everyone who recognized the importance and value of our contribution to this country. There's been a series of arguments. The naysayers around Juneteenth will say, why are you celebrating that? It's a black eye, you should be quiet about it. It only indicates that we found out 2 years after the legislation that we had our freedom. And that's the wrong attitude. First, never forget. If you forget that an institution will see your rights enacted and will wait till someone enforces them, you don't need to not know that in 2020, that it also happened 155 years ago. Know it happened then, know it can happen again. That's the importance of recognition, of communication, of extending it generation to generation, of continued passing on of the heritage and its true history. A quick word. Juneteenth was not just the heartfelt benevolence of Abraham Lincoln. While he was one of the most conscientious and decent presidents of our country's history, the Emancipation Proclamation was a strategic military maneuver. It had been threatened a series of times by Lincoln and the ragtag administration at that time in an effort to end the Civil War because of the women who were becoming widows due to the soldiers of the North dying. The purpose of ending slavery was to strip away the economic engine of the uprisings of the South through the sales of their textiles, of the rice, the wheat, the corn, the cotton that we were bringing to market. So the purpose of ending Juneteenth was to end the Civil War. That was its action, that was its outcome. Our freedom was our right, whether it was given to us by kindness, by strategy, or by the true giver of it, which was God, who saw the need and the right for us to stand here today free and to speak our word as it is free, to be truthful freely, and to be disagreed with and to disagree, and to remain that way because we are, as we were then, true citizens of the United States. Those who built it, those whose blood fills this ground, those who stood here and got their freedom on that day, and all their descendants. And this is not just a black holiday. It is our day. It's a day when you, if you're not black and descended from someone who was less conscientious than you, can say, I am better, I've learned, I've improved. I was taught wrong, now I know right. I'm born into a world where I see a person and that person is just like me, no matter what their skin color is. Their rights are my rights. Their pain is my pain, and we will all operate on the basis of love and dignity. So Juneteenth is everyone's opportunity to celebrate what the country was and to acknowledge that we are those enlisted to make sure it's never that again, to emblazon it in history, just as we do the dark past of the Confederacy, and to move forward with the country on the basis of our true values and our true character. So, on today, my father would say thank you. If 46 states already recognize this as a holiday, if states send employees home, banks close for half a day, we know that this locomotive is going toward the paid federal holiday of Juneteenth in this country. It was our work and our doing on this ground, this actual piece of real estate here in Galveston, Texas, this is where it happened, that African Americans received their freedom in the South, delivered by the word of the U.S. government. It's not to be taken away from us. It's not to be muzzled or silenced or marginalized. It is Freedom Day for African Americans in the United States. It is our day. White, black, Asian, Mexican American, it is a United States holiday, and it needs to be recognized as such, and it needs to be passed into legislation as such. So, thank you, and happy Juneteenth.
For the past 22 years, we used to serve a complimentary breakfast in the ballroom of Ashton Villa. However, this year, because of the coronavirus epidemic, we canceled the breakfast and will be delivering through the local churches here on the island over 900 free boxes of food to senior citizens on Galveston Island. The labels on the boxes will says compliments of our Galveston Juneteenth sponsors. We would like to thank all of the news coverage of our Galveston Juneteenth celebration this year, especially our Galveston County Daily News, which is the oldest newspaper in the state of Texas. 2 days ago, they printed a picture, an article that showed us celebrating Juneteenth in 1980, the celebration here on the front steps of Ashton Villa. And in that picture included the first black police captain, Leon Lewis, myself. I was assistant city manager back then, Galveston Mayor Gus Manuel, Al Edwards himself, the Miss Juneteenth, Galveston State Representative Doug McLeod, who co-sponsored the bill, and Reverend James B. Thomas. We would like to thank all of the news coverage of our Galveston Juneteenth, especially the Galveston Daily News. And now we would like, the last thing on the program, we will have the benediction and then the reading of the General Order Number 3 by Major General Gordon Granger. Thank you very much.
Let us bow our head in prayer. Father, we come now saying thank you for the people that you've gathered this morning through your Holy Spirit. We thank you for the presenters, all that have spoken, and you've spoken through them. But most of all, we thank you for your presence and the auspices of the Holy Spirit. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto all of us. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Let us all say amen.
On June 18th, Major General Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas with thousands of United States troops. Both the troops that you would expect and also United States colored troops, mainly from the Chicago area. The piece of paper and the words didn't grant the freedom. The projection of force granted the freedom. This is a copy of one of the originals of the bills that he had. There are 4 general orders on it that were then promulgated throughout Texas. They were telegraphed across, and they were carried by the Galveston Daily News. The most important one for us is the 3rd general order. Headquarters, District of Texas, Galveston, Texas, June 19th, 1865, General Orders Number 3. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and to work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts, that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere, by order of Major General Granger.
Happy Juneteenth. That concludes the program. Thank you.
That is a big change from where we were, say, at the end of March and the beginning of April. It was skewing much older at that time. It's important to also understand, and I thought this new study that came out, they looked in Italy and they looked at serum samples of 4,300 contacts of index cases, and they found that 69.1% of infected individuals under the age of 60 had no symptoms. Now, this is one study, but I think a lot of other studies have been very similar. Why that's important is I think it's important for people to understand a lot of the people who are testing positive now are not symptomatic. And I think the hospital execs will talk about they test people, anyone who comes in for procedure, and those who test positive are almost always asymptomatic. And so in when if you were somebody that was 25 and you were not symptomatic and you wanted to go to like a drive-through test site in March, you would not have qualified to get tested. Part of that was the CDC guidelines. Part of that was the resources were less than they are now. So that was really focused on those folks who were most likely to suffer clinical consequences. So when we first did the big site in Broward County with the National Guard and Memorial Healthcare, we had first responders and healthcare workers, but then symptomatic individuals age 65 or above.
I heard a little bit when they had the air bullhorn. I know. Why didn't they just make it? It's a lot of work, I guess. Last week, somebody was bringing in somebody sticks. Yeah. Oh.
I can
that's
tell
what you're
you.
smoking,
I can
smoke
tell
that
you
around
right now.
That is definitely not weed. That's skunkier than skunky.
Yes.
I got a couple friends that used to work for the business. Put a picture up on that.
Ellison, the night after I had her, she did this morning. Tony Butler.
Yeah. Oh God.
Started out in Lafayette. They're coming here.
Thank you.
Come on, let's go, kids. We went.
Nope. We're getting a new one. Yeah. We don't march. Not supposed to march with them. That's I hope the courier isn't here right now. We can see him. See him, we go. Assume that, oh, you guys are, oh man, you guys suck. You guys, I cannot believe that is all you're here for.
Symphony Network. Gotta go to Camelot.
Yeah.
Oh, I ain't put no filter.
Oh, for God's sake. So is she still going from her house?
Yeah, she never did from there.
She never did. They were ready to, though, if they had to, yeah.
Yeah, they're still ready.
Assigned to her house for 3 months.
Oh, my God, you're killing me.
Every day. What are you guys doing? Go to her house.
Hey, what the hell?
We need to be available for anything.
Unlike us, where we don't even, we have, what's, God, I can't even remember his name. Lester. He does it himself. We built the studio in his house, and he does it himself. Every single one of our people does it themselves. Andrea Mitchell has Alan Greenspan as her cameraman.
It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, but does he know how to take the detail out of it?
I'm not posting on Facebook. Tana, Tanisha, guys.
been restored.
up? What's up, homie? I'm good. What's up, Bob? Thank you. I had to pull the mask off. You know what's up? Good, man.
Walking with
Good?
you on the water.
Family good? Okay, good. Good.
Can I get a ride and never come back?
Roll that. Got the good track. Good thing you got this joint right here, too. My man had to get his nuts clipped.